What's going on? It's your boy Sermon at Sermons on Twitter. With the year wrapping up, I decided that I wanted to highlight my favorite book of the year. It is Original Gangstas, the untold tale of West Coast hip hop, of Tupac, of Ice Cube, of Dr. Dre, of Snoop Dogg, and all the other players that were around. You know, Nate Dogg, Warren G, the rest of the members of N.W.A, etc. And it's written by Ben Westhoff. This is his second book. He wrote a book back in 2011 titled Dirty South. And it was a smaller book, but it was also kind of very insightful. I had various chapters about DJ Drum, about Lil Wayne, and it was a good read. But with Original Gangstas, he really stepped it up. He interviewed over 100 people for this book and did extensive research. If I had to say, this is the definitive West Coast hip hop book. There is no reason to ever read anything else about the West Coast from the beginning, before N.W.A, up until Tupac and Big's passing. So with this book, I was very surprised in how detailed it was. As someone who knows about West Coast hip hop, there were a lot of things in here that I didn't know about, and certain situations that were expanded upon. For instance, in Straight Outta Compton, the movie, you have a scene where N.W.A is told if they perform Fuck the Police in Detroit, they're going to get arrested. So they do that, they get arrested, and all hell breaks loose. But that is not exactly how the story goes in real life. See, instead of them getting caught and arrested, they were able to perform, and then they ran backstage and they outran the cops. The cops didn't find them until they got back to their hotel. And even then they weren't arrested, they were just questioned, pretty much kicked out of Detroit, said they had to go now. But another interesting thing that I was reading about that particular incident was that police thought that LL Cool J's entourage were a part of N.W.A. They burst into LL Cool J's dressing room and, tried to arrest and fight the people in there. So I thought that was very interesting because I didn't know LL Cool J was on the bill for that particular concert. It's moments like that that make the book worth reading because the stories about how Dr. Dre started Death Row, about how he found Snoop Dogg, but this book gives you more insight into the actual details. Another thing that I really enjoyed about the book was that everything seemed like a seamless transition. There was no moments where I was like, he's jumping from this point to this point. No, Ben is very good at having a section about Snoop Dogg, talking about Snoop Dogg and how he's, gaining a bit of success, Doggy Style's out, and then before you know it, we're talking about Warren G and how Death Row didn't want to sign Warren G, but because of the booming West Coast scene, Def Jam wanted to partake, and so they were able to sign Warren G, and he was able to go on and be successful with Regulate, with his debut album. And so I just love hearing stories about that, and there is a lot in here. I'm probably going to read this book again sometime in the future because there's just a lot of information that kind of gets glossed over. When you have a book that has so much research, so much history included into it, there is a certain amount that you're not going to remember on the first read. I wanted to highlight two other passages in the book that I particularly enjoyed. One was about how radio didn't want to play Dr. Dre's Nothing But a G thing. For radio disc jockeys, they thought it was promoting violence when it really wasn't. So Jimmy Iovine, being the genius he is, came up with a plan. He decided to take out a minute-long ad on radio. And instead of it being like an ad, it was just a minute long of Nothing But a G thing. And so when that played as an ad, people were calling up the radio like, yo, what is this song? You gotta play this song. And so it became a hit in that way on radio. And I think that really speaks to Jimmy's genius. Just how innovative he was and how he's someone who, I would say, doesn't take no for an answer. If he sees a vision, if he believes something is a hit, at least back in those days, he was going to figure out how to make it a hit. And it's a tactic that I never really heard of. So I thought it was just so fascinating that Jimmy was able to think up this idea and really helped Nothing But a G Thing become the classic that it is today. The other story that really caught my attention was the fact that there isn't much unreleased Eazy-E music, and there's a story behind that. The short version of the story, because I do want you to go pick up the book, so I'm not going to go into immense details, but the story simply is that someone stole the music out of Eazy's trunk and fled to Canada. And so it gets to this whole complicated situation, and to date, they never recovered the music. So the music could still possibly be out there, but it seems like, I don't know, it seems kind of unlikely. At this point, some kind of Eazy-E music would have turned up if somebody had it. The whole situation was just crazy. The FBI was involved, and they were trying to get the music, and just, it was chaotic. When Eazy-E passed, there was a lot going on with Ruthless. Everybody was trying to sue, trying to get a piece of the pie. There was fights over his estate, so there was just a lot going on. And one more little thing that I looked up, but I didn't find much information, was that Chris Tucker was going to do a comedy album on Ruthless in 1997. This is before Rush Hour. This is before Chris Tucker really took off. He had Friday and a few other movies under his belt. I just thought it was so crazy that he was going to do a comedy album with Ruthless, and there's no information out there, virtually nothing. I googled it, and there's like a couple little links, like a small little mention, but there's not like details on why it never happened or anything of that nature. So I just thought that this book was just phenomenal. If you're a fan of West Coast hip-hop, you need to pick this one up. Go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble. If you read on a Kindle, pick it up on Kindle. I would highly recommend it because it is up there with The Big Payback, which is like the history of the business behind hip-hop. That is probably one of my favorite books, and I can now put Original Gangstas on there as well. So those are my thoughts on my favorite book of the year, Original Gangstas by Ben Westhoff. Go pick it up, then like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, share the video, follow me on Twitter @SermonsDomain, and as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, peace.